Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Wednesday, the 27th of January. European Union complains about difficulties in deporting Pakistani migrants. Pakistani court dismisses plea demanding voice samples of Mumbai attacks perpetrators. And Myanmar's outgoing president pushes to extend power of military-controlled ministry. And now for all the details. India could make a fresh bid to label Jaish-i-Mohammad chief Maulana MasoodAzhar a global terrorist. Azhar is the alleged mastermind of the recent terror attack on Indian airbase, in which 7 Indian security personnel were killed.
Indian government is considering reviving the request to label Jaish-i-Mohammad mentor MasoodAzhar as a global terrorist, says sources. India has claimed it has enough evidences to nail his involvement in plotting the terror attack on the Indian airbase on 2nd January. According to reports, India is also preparing the ground against Azhar's brother Rauf Asghar, Abdul Rahman Makki of Jamaat-ud-Dawa and Azam Chima of Lashkar-e-Taiba outfits. If the United Nations approves to impose sanctions against Azhar and others for plotting and carrying out terror activities, all member countries will be urged to take actions against them and not provide them any shelter or financial assistance to their outfits in future. Currently, Azhar's outfit Jaish-i-Mohammad, which operates from Pakistan, is labelled as a terrorist organisation in many countries including United States, Canada, Australia, United Kingdom and India. India claims that Azhar has carried out a string of deadly attacks against India, including the terror attack on the Indian Parliament in December 2001. This is India's second effort to label Azhar as a global terrorist. India's earlier proposal at the United Nations Security Council in 2010 was blocked by China at the behest of Pakistan.
The Vice Chancellor and security head have been blamed for lapse during the terrorist attack on Bachcha Khan University in Pakistan. 21 people, mostly students, lost their lives and scores injured after terrorists scaled the wall of the university and opened fire in the campus last week.
The district officials of Charsada in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province held the Vice Chancellor and person in charge of the security responsible for security failure that led to the death of 21 people. Authorities claimed that only 4 of the 55 security personnel were on duty at the time of attack despite intelligence input of a possible terror attack in the region. Security fears have been lingering in the province since the Peshawar school attack in the same region in December 2014, in which 134 children were killed. But the security conditions in schools and institutes are still said to be deplorable. The Bachcha Khan University was closed on Tuesday for indefinite period after teachers demanded more security.
A Pakistan High Court has dismissed government's petition seeking voice samples of the alleged masterminds of 26/11 Mumbai attacks and of 6 other suspects in the case. The decision is a setback to the 2008 terror attack trial in which 166 people were killed.
The prosecution had filed a petition in Islamabad High Court seeking clippings of the suspects, including Lashkar-e-Taiba Operations Commander Zakir Rahman Lakhvi, to compare it with the communication intercepted by Indian intelligence. The voice samples then would have been presented before the Anti-Terrorism Court or ATC as evidence against the suspects. However, the Islamabad High Court dismissed the petition due to non-prosecution by the Federal Investigation Agency. This is the second time that the court had dismissed the petition since 2012 due to the absence of the prosecution to argue the case, reports suggested. Earlier, a Rawalpindi court handling the Mumbai attack case had dismissed similar petition for obtaining voice sample of Lakhvi, alleged mastermind of the attack, on the ground that no law exists in Pakistan that allows obtaining of voice sample of an accused. A fortnight ago, the Pakistani Anti-Terrorism Court also rejected the prosecution's plea to form a commission to examine the boat used by the 10 LET terrorists to reach the Indian coast. The court decision is considered to be a setback to 26/11 Mumbai terror attack trial. Over 166 people were killed and hundreds injured in the deadly attack. India had claimed the involvement of Hafiz Saeed, the chief of Pakistan-based outfit Jamaat-ud-Dawa, and Lashkar-e-Toiba operations commander Zakir-Rahman Lakhvi in plotting and executing the attack. But despite being given evidences by India, Islamabad has not concluded its trial. Both Lakhvi and Saeed roam freely in Pakistan.
The European Union has censured Islamabad for not facilitating the return of Pakistani immigrants deported from the EU area to Pakistan. It warned of taking steps against Islamabad if it fails to comply with the deal on repatriations.
The European Union, which is struggling with huge influx of migrants from many war-ravaged countries, complained about the difficulties in sending illegal Pakistani migrants back to Pakistan. Pakistan is one of the top 5 countries from where most of the 1 million migrants had last year arrived from. But while other migrants were escaping conflict in their native countries, most of the Pakistani immigrants are considered economic migrants rather than war victims. Refugees considered to be economic migrants are being deported back to their respective countries. Islamabad had last year temporarily suspended the repatriation agreement, citing its blatant misuse and saying member countries were not adequately checking the nationality of the deportees. The EU had then agreed to address Islamabad's concerns, and the deal was restored in November following a meeting between Pakistani officials and EU Migration Chief Dimitris Avramopoulos. However, the EU claims it is still facing difficulty in deporting back illegal migrants. While discussions have been good and positive, we note that there are still difficulties with this readmission deal. The Commission is currently examining possible incentives, positive and negative, so that this accord is applied properly, European Commission spokeswoman Natasha Bertod said. In December, Pakistan had refused to allow 30 migrants deported from Greece, claiming Greece had failed to provide adequate proof that they were Pakistanis, a claim later disputed by the EU.
Afghanistan President Ashraf Ghani has vouched to provide security to media organizations and the staff in the country. Ghani instructed security institutions to use every means to protect them. His statement comes days after 7 media personnel were killed in a suicide bombing in Kabul. The Taliban had claimed responsibility for the brutal attack. They also threatened to target more media persons from a private news channel for the news coverage of the fighting in Kunduz city in September. The suicide attack on journalists was highly condemned by the international community. Ghani has also promised that Afghan government would extend assistance to the families of the journalists who lost their lives in the attacks. The Afghan Taliban, in order to hit back at government forces for intensifying military operations in the Baghlan province, blew up a major electricity pylon which imported power from Uzbekistan near Baghlan-Kunduz highway. The attack comes a day after security forces had launched a massive clearing operation in Dandighori area on the outskirts of capital Kabul. The overnight attack in Baghlan had cut off 250 megawatts of electricity supply to the capital. Important facilities in Kabul, including hospitals, were provided thermal electricity after the power snapped. According to government officials, repair work could not be resumed yet due to the ongoing clashes at the blast site. Myanmar is set to have a new parliament next month. Before this, the government has sought for expansion of military control in the lawmaking.
Myanmar's incumbent president Thein Sein asked the parliament to extend the power of military-controlled Home Ministry by giving it control over the Immigration Ministry, officials said on Tuesday. This comes few days before the military-dominated parliament hands over power to Aung San Suu Kyi-led National League for Democracy, or NLD, which swept the general elections in November last year. If the proposal is approved, it would significantly add to the military's power even under an NLD government. That is because the junta drafted constitution puts the three major ministries of Home Affairs, Border Affairs and Defence under army control. The Home Ministry already allows police and huge swathes of bureaucracy under its control. Myanmar was ruled by military for decades before it was replaced by President Thein Sein's quasi-civilian government in 2011.
The Sri Lankan government must fulfill its commitment to the UNHRC by ensuring participation of foreign judges and prosecutors for war crime probe, the Human Rights Watch has said. After being elected in August, the island nation's new government had shown willingness to establish a judicial process involving foreign judges and prosecutors in line with UN recommendations. But in recent times, the statements of the government have been shaky over the matter.
The Sri Lankan government must stick to its promise and fully implement all aspects of UN resolution on Sri Lanka without any exception, the World Organization said on Monday. This came after Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena last week said that he will never agree to international involvement, saying the island nation has more than enough specialists, experts and knowledgeable people to solve the internal matters. The Sri Lankan government sought international involvement to ensure justice and accountability, so there is no excuse for backtracking now. President Sirisena needs to understand that international participation in a war crimes tribunal was not a vague promise to the UN, but a firm commitment to the thousands of Sri Lankans who suffered during the country's long civil war, said Brad Adams, Asia Director of Human Rights Watch. In October last year, the UN Human Rights Council had called for formation of a special hybrid court consisting of international judges and prosecutors to probe into crimes committed during the 26-year-long civil war between Sri Lankan military and Tamil rebels that ended in 2009, given the shortcomings of domestic institutions to ensure impartial investigations and witness protection. Following which, President Sirisena had said that Sri Lanka would form its own domestic mechanism to probe the war crimes, while the international experts could give their assistance in technical and consultative aspect.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. European Union complains about difficulties in deporting Pakistani migrants. Pakistani court dismisses plea demanding voice samples of Mumbai attacks perpetrators. And Myanmar's outgoing president pushes to extend power of military-controlled ministry. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.